So imagine you have two kids,
Gar?
and one has this insanely high IQ, like higher than Einstein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the other kid is, just sort of smart enough.
Right.
And the first one, the genius, works incredibly hard, while the other one just gets a few lucky breaks.
Let me guess. Society tells us the genius who works hard is going to win.
Every single time. That's the story we're told, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the data tells a completely different, almost, I don't know, unsettling story.
Yeah.
So the big question for today is success really the result of talent and hard work? Or are there hidden factors that shape who gets ahead?
It is the ultimate question. We all desperately love that narrative of the lone genius
Right.
or, the self-made billionaire who pulled themselves up by their bootstrap.
Oh, we love a good bootstrap story.
Exactly. But when you look closely at the historical and sociological data, that whole solitary hero narrative it starts to completely fall apart.
And that realization is basically the mission of our deep dive today. We're extracting the core insights from Malcolm Gladwell's work on Outliers, and we are going to apply them directly to, your career, your education, your leadership goals.
Yeah.
We're looking at the hidden architecture of success. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, so to really set the stage for how much our environment dictates our outcomes, we actually have to look at this medical anomaly from the 1950s.
Great.
It's called the Roseto Mystery.
Roseto, like the town.
Yeah, exactly. Roseto was this tiny town in Pennsylvania, and it was settled almost entirely by Italian immigrants.
Right.
And a physician named Stuart Wolfe went there and discovered something that was, frankly, medically impossible at the time.
Which was?
Practically no one under 55 had died of a heart attack.
Wow.
Yeah, and the death rate for men over 65 was like half the national average. They were pretty much just dying of old age.
Which is wild because, looking at the sources, it absolutely wasn't their diet.
No, not at all.
They were eating, like, pizza loaded with sausage. They cooked with lard instead of, healthy oils.
Right.
And a huge portion of the town smoked heavily. Plus, they weren't exactly hitting the gym. It wasn't superior genetics, and it wasn't the local geography, right?
Exactly. The medical community was just totally baffled by this. But Wolfe and his colleague, a sociologist named John Brune, they finally realized the secret was, well, it was Roseto itself.
The town.
Yeah, the community structure. It was this tight-knit, multi-generational thing. You had like 3 generations living under one roof.
Oh, wow.
People were constantly stopping to chat in Italian on the street. They were cooking for each other, and they maintained this deeply egalitarian culture.
Meaning what, exactly?
Like, the wealthy people in town didn't flaunt their success. Everyone was just kind of on the same level socially, so they had created this powerful, protective social structure that literally insulated their hearts from the stress of the modern world.
That's incredible. So just as we have to look at a community's, like, invisible social fabric to understand their physical health, we have to look at hidden environments to understand an individual's success.
Exactly.
Because we have this deep cultural obsession with the self-made person. But there's this brilliant analogy in the text that just completely shatters it for me.
The oak tree.
Yeah, the oak tree. Think about the tallest oak in the forest. It isn't just the tallest because it grew from the hardiest acorn. It's the tallest because, well, no other trees blocked its sunlight.
Yep.
The soil happened to be incredibly rich. No rabbit chewed its bark when it was a vulnerable little sapling. And, no lumberjack came along and cut it down.
It's such a perfect analogy. We are so fiercely focused on the seed, on the talent, that we completely ignore the soil, the sunlight, the lumberjacks, all of it.
Right.
Talent and hard work are absolutely necessary. You do need a good acorn. But they aren't the whole story. Success isn't just about what successful people are like. It is fundamentally about where they are from.
Okay, so if the soil matters that much, how does that actually play out in something we think of as a pure meritocracy? Like, sports.
Oh, sports is a great example. Let's look at Canadian major junior hockey.
Okay.
It is considered one of the most intense, purely merit-based systems in the world. Scouts are evaluating these kids constantly from a very young age.
Right.
But if you look at the rosters of elite Canadian hockey teams, there's this bizarre statistical anomaly. Roughly 40% of the professional level players are born between January and March.
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me astrology is real?
No.
Like, what on earth does a January birthday actually mean on the ice?
I know, it sounds crazy, but it has nothing to do with the stars and absolutely everything to do with the mundane administrative rules of age class hockey.
Okay, lay it on me.
In Canada, the eligibility cutoff date for a hockey age bracket is January 1st.
Ah, oh, I see where this is going.
Right, so a 10-year-old boy born on January 2nd is playing alongside a kid who doesn't turn 10 until late December.
Which is almost a full year of difference.
Exactly. And in pre-adolescence, a 12-month gap represents an enormous, totally insurmountable difference in physical maturity. The older kids are taller, heavier, faster.
And far more coordinated.
Yes, simply because they've been alive for 10 months longer.
So the coaches are standing there on the ice watching this kid skate faster and hit harder, and they're mistaking basic physical maturity for innate talent.
Precisely. And this triggers a sociological concept called the Matthew effect.
The Matthew effect.
Yeah, or a cumulative advantage. The principle is really simple. Those who have get more. The slightly older, bigger kid gets selected for the elite all-star traveling team.
Right.
And because he is on that elite team, he gets better coaching. He plays 50 to 75 games a season instead of like 20. And he practices 3 times as much. So by the time he's 14, he actually is vastly better than the December kid. A small, completely arbitrary initial advantage just accumulated into a massive real-world advantage.
That is wild. So if getting picked for that elite team gives that older kid 3 times as much practice,
Yeah.
what happens when we compound that over, say, a decade? Because it turns out the sheer volume of practice might be the only thing separating the good from the truly world-class writer.
That is exactly what researchers found in the early 1990s.
The Music Academy study.
Yeah, the psychologist K. Anders Ericsson conducted this massive study at Berlin's Elite Academy of Music.
Go.
They divided violinists into 3 groups. You had the potential world-class soloists, the merely good ones, and then those who would likely just become, school music teachers.
And did they find the naturally gifted Mozart types? The ones who just picked it up with no effort?
What's fascinating here is that they found absolutely no naturals and no grinds.
Really?
Yes, meaning they couldn't find a single person who floated to the top with less practice than everyone else, nor could they find someone who worked harder than everyone else but somehow failed to break into the top tier.
It was purely based on the hours.
Every single elite violinist had accumulated roughly 10,000 hours of deliberate practice by the age of 20. The merely good students had totaled 8,000, and the future teachers, just 4,000.
So 10,000 hours seems to be this magic threshold for world-class expertise. And looking at the sources, we see this everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
Look at the Beatles. We think of them as these spontaneous, magical, creative geniuses.
Right.
But in 1960, they were invited to play in Hamburg, Germany, in these rowdy strip clubs.
Oh, yeah, Hamburg.
And they weren't just playing a quick 45-minute set. They were forced to play 8-hour shows, 7 days a week.
That is grueling.
By the time they had their massive breakthrough in 1964, they had performed live an estimated 1,200 times. I mean, most bands today don't perform 1,200 times in their entire careers.
And that sheer volume of hours fundamentally rewired how they played music together. They were tight, and we see the exact same thing in technology.
Oh, like who?
Take Bill Joy. He's one of the brilliant pioneers of modern computing. So in 1971, he stumbled across a computer center at the University of Michigan.
Computing back then was incredibly tedious, right? Like you had to use punch cards, hand them to an operator, and wait hours just to see if your code even worked.
Exactly. It was so slow. But Michigan was one of the very first places in the world to switch to a time-sharing system. This meant multiple people could connect to the mainframe via a teletype terminal, type commands, and get immediate feedback.
Oh, game changer.
Huge game changer. And Joy figured out a bug in the system. If he typed TK, the computer wouldn't charge his account for the time he was logged in.
Sneaky.
Very sneaky. So he basically lived in that lab. He programmed day and night, racking up his 10,000 hours entirely for free before most of the world had even seen a computer monitor.
Okay, that completely rephrases how I view overnight success. Because, wait, it's not just a matter of grinding out hours.
Yeah.
You can't hit 10,000 hours as a teenager unless someone or some system gives you the actual opportunity and access to do so.
Right.
Bill Joy needed that specific time-sharing computer to exist at his university. The Beatles needed that specific club owner in Hamburg to demand 8-hour sets. The environment enabled the hours.
And this brings us to an even deeper layer of hidden advantage. Because if opportunity gives you the hours, historical timing decides if those hours are actually valuable to the world.
Wait, how so? Timing?
Yeah, look at the list of the 75 richest people in human history. It is mind-blowing. An astonishing 14 of them are Americans born within a narrow 9-year window in the 1830s.
14 of the top 75.
Yes, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan.
Why that specific decade, though?
Because the American economy went through a massive, totally unprecedented transformation in the 1860s and 1870s. The expansion of the railroads and the birth of Wall Street.
Oh, I see the math here. If you were born in the 1840s, you were still in your teens or early 20s in the 1860s. So you were too young to run a major company and take advantage of the boom.
Exactly.
But if you're born in the 1820s, you were in your 40s. You were already established in the old pre-Civil War way of doing business and probably too rigid to pivot.
Right. You had to be in your 20s or 30s right as that wave broke. And we see the exact same demographic luck with the personal computer revolution.
Good.
The dawn of the PC age is widely considered to be January 1975, when the Altair 8800 mini computer debuted.
So applying that same logic
Yeah.
to get in on the ground floor, you couldn't be too old. You didn't want to have a mortgage and a safe corporate job at IBM.
Nope.
But you couldn't be so young that you were still sitting in, like, high school algebra. You wanted to be about 20 or 21 years old.
Which means you desperately wanted to be born right around 1954 or 1955.
Okay, let me guess.
Look at who was. Bill Gates, October 1955. Steve Jobs, February 1955. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, April 1955. Bill Joy, November 1954.
That is incredible.
They were the absolute perfect age to ride that specific technological wave.
But let's bring this down to earth for a minute, because what if you aren't trying to be a tech billionaire or a robber baron?
Sure.
How does this invisible architecture of success affect regular people, like in education or the modern workplace?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not just sweeping historical timing that shapes us. It is also our cultural legacy. We carry deeply ingrained assumptions and habits from the environments our ancestors inhabited.
Give me like I'm 5 out on that.
Mhm.
How does an environment from hundreds of years ago affect me sitting in a meeting today?
Let's compare historical agriculture.
Agriculture. Okay.
Yeah, Western agriculture is fundamentally mechanically oriented. You clear more land, you use bigger machines, and crucially, you rest the soil.
Right.
The fields sit empty in the winter, and historically, European peasants had a long period of dormancy and rest during those cold months.
Makes total sense.
But wet rice agriculture in Asia is entirely different. It is highly skill-oriented. You can't just buy a machine or easily clear more land on a steep mountainside.
So what do you do?
To get a better yield, you have to weed more diligently, fertilize better, and manage the water levels perfectly. It demands intense, painstaking year-round labor. We're talking up to 3,000 hours a year in a paddy the size of a hotel room. There is no winter break.
Okay, so you have one culture that values resting the system and another that requires relentless year-round optimization. How does that translate to modern success?
It creates a deep generational cultural attitude of doggedness. There's a traditional Chinese proverb that goes, "No one who can rise before dawn 360 days a year fails to make his family rich."
360 days.
Yeah, and that attitude translates directly to things like mathematics.
Buff.
Success in math isn't just about innate cognitive ability. It is largely about persistence.
Yeah.
It is about the willingness to sit there and try to solve a frustrating equation for 20 minutes instead of throwing your hands up after 30 seconds.
Oh, I see.
Cultures shaped by the rice paddy have that persistence built into their social DNA.
And the most amazing part is that you can actually engineer this environment today. The sources talk about the KIPP Academy in the South Bronx.
Yes, KIPP.
They took this rice paddy lesson and applied it to underprivileged middle schoolers. So Western schools have this long summer vacation, which is a direct legacy of resting the agricultural fields, right?
Exactly.
And that causes massive learning loss, especially for poorer kids who don't have access to summer camps or private tutors. So KIPP just eliminated
So
it.
got rid of summer vacation.
Yeah, they run long school days, early starts, and intensive math classes with very little summer break. And the result? 84% of their students perform at or above grade level in math.
Exactly. They changed the environment to foster persistence, which actually leads us to perhaps the most crucial environmental factor of all, something called practical intelligence.
Yes, this is where the story gets a bit dark, honestly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Chris Langan.
Okay.
This guy is famous for having an IQ of 195.
That's incredibly high.
It is significantly higher than Albert Einstein. He started reading at 3, could skim a dense textbook for 2 minutes and just ace a test. He is the ultimate undeniable genius.
Uh,
But he ended up dropping out of college and working as a bouncer on a horse farm. Compare him to Robert Oppenheimer, the famous physicist who ran the Manhattan Project. When Oppenheimer was in university, he literally tried to poison his tutor with a chemically laced apple.
It is such a shocking side-by-side comparison. Oppenheimer commits a major premeditated felony attempted murder, basically, and he just talks his way out of it.
Yeah.
He gets put on probation and goes on to convince the military to let him run the most important scientific project in human history.
While Langan loses his college scholarship just because his mother didn't fill out a financial aid form correctly.
Wow.
And later, when he tried to get his class schedule moved to the afternoon because his car broke down and he couldn't commute, the administration just stonewalled him. He didn't know how to fight back, so he just quit. Why did the guy with the 195 IQ fail to navigate a simple administrative scheduling problem, while Oppenheimer survived an attempted murder charge?
Because Langan possessed immense analytical intelligence, but he completely lacked practical intelligence.
Practical intelligence.
Yes. Practical intelligence is the procedural knowledge of knowing what to say, to whom to say it, and when to say it to get exactly what you want. It's knowing how to navigate bureaucracy and authority. And crucially, it is a learned skill. It's usually passed down from our families.
The sociologist Annette Leroux did an incredible study on this, didn't she?
Yes. She followed families from different economic backgrounds, and she found that wealthy parents use a parenting strategy called concerted cultivation.
Okay, what does that look like?
They heavily schedule their kids, they quiz them, and they intentionally teach them to negotiate with authority figures. There's this great example in her study of a rich 9-year-old boy challenging his doctor during a checkup.
Challenging his doctor.
Yeah, asking detailed questions about his medication because his mom had prepped him in the car to speak up. These kids learn a healthy sense of entitlement. They learn how to customize their environment to serve them.
And Leroux contrasted that with poorer parents, who often use a strategy called accomplishment of natural growth. They care for their kids deeply, but they let them develop on their own without intervening.
Right.
They tend to be intimidated by authority figures like teachers or doctors, so their kids learn a sense of distance, constraint, and compliance. So Oppenheimer, raised in a wealthy Manhattan family, bathed in concerted cultivation. He knew how to bend the world to his will.
While Langan, raised in severe poverty with a volatile, struggling home life, learned only distrust and constraint.
So if I'm a listener who is a college student right now, and stressing because I just have average grades, but I'm incredibly passionate about a specific skill, say coding or writing, should I be panicking? Does this data say I'm doomed because I don't have a 195 IQ?
Not at all. It teaches us about the threshold effect.
The threshold effect.
Yeah, we inherently think higher grades or a higher IQ is always linearly better, but the data shows that once you hit a certain threshold, say an IQ of around 120 additional points, don't actually translate into more real-world success.
Interesting.
A scientist with a 130 IQ is just as likely to win a Nobel Prize as one with a 180 IQ. Once you are smart enough, divergence, creativity, and practical intelligence matter far more, so that students shouldn't stress about maximizing their grades once they've crossed the threshold of competence.
So what should they do instead?
Instead, they should focus their energy on finding their Hamburg, that specific environment or community where they can safely rack up intensive, deliberate practice hours in their chosen skill.
Okay, what about someone already in the workforce? Say we have two young professionals.
Yeah.
One gets promoted fast because they're highly competent and build amazing relationships with upper management.
Yeah.
The other has incredible raw talent, maybe even more talent, but they are isolated. They lack access to mentors and opportunities. What's the lesson there?
The lesson there is found in the story of Joe Flom.
Who is Joe Flom?
He was a brilliant Jewish lawyer in New York in the mid-20th century. Now, despite his incredible talent, he was locked out of the prestigious white shoe law firms because of his background and his religion.
That's totally shut out.
Yeah, but he used that severe rejection to his advantage. He joined a tiny firm and took on the unglamorous, aggressive work the big firms felt was beneath them, specifically hostile corporate takeovers. He spent decades building relationships and expertise in that specific, highly stigmatized niche. So when the corporate world violently shifted in the 1970s and takeovers became standard practice, Flom was the undisputed master.
So competence gave him his 10,000 hours. His relationships and practical intelligence allowed him to leverage it.
Yes. For the talented employee lacking mentors, the hard truth is that raw talent isn't enough to navigate the corporate landscape. You need to actively seek out those who can teach you the practical intelligence of your specific industry.
Talent opens the door, but opportunity determines whether you get to walk through it.
Exactly.
Now, what if I'm a senior manager listening to this? If I'm leading a team, how do I stop throwing away talent just because someone didn't come from a background of concerted cultivation?
Well, look at the aviation industry, specifically Korean Air in the late 1990s.
Okay.
They had a catastrophic safety record. Planes were literally crashing into mountains. But the problem wasn't incompetent pilots. It was actually a cultural legacy of something called high power distance.
High power distance, what does that mean?
It's a deep, ingrained reverence for authority. It meant junior officers felt it was culturally inappropriate to directly contradict a captain, even when the captain was making a fatal error in a storm.
Oh, wow. So how do you fix a cultural legacy that is crashing planes?
When an outside expert was brought in, he didn't fire the pilots. He changed their environment. He required English to be spoken in the cockpit
Wait, why English?
because it flattened the hierarchy. It bypassed the rigid hierarchical honorifics built into the Korean language. A junior officer could be more direct in a second language. He retrained them in a new environment to correct for a hidden disadvantage.
Wow.
Leaders today must do the same. They must build systems that intentionally correct for the hidden disadvantages their employees might face, whether that's offering direct mentorship or changing how meetings are run so the quietest voices are actually heard. Success is personal, but it is rarely completely individual.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Wait, hold on. If everything comes down to what month I was born or what historical era I grew up in or what my great-grandparents did for a living, isn't that incredibly depressing?
I can see why you'd say that.
It sounds like you're saying personal effort doesn't actually matter and we are just stripping away all personal responsibility.
It's a vital pushback, and it's a trap a lot of people fall into when reading this data. Gladwell's framework absolutely does not mean effort is unimportant. Look at the Jewish immigrants who worked in the New York garment industry, laying the groundwork for lawyers like Joe Flom.
Okay.
Their physical labor was grueling, but it was meaningful work because it had three specific qualities: autonomy, complexity, and a direct, visible link between effort and reward.
So hard work matters when the environment allows it to actually mean something.
Yes, success is not just a passive lottery ticket. Success is the violent intersection of extreme preparation and a favorable environment. Joe Flom still had to aggressively grind out the hours. Bill Gates still had to code late into the night until his eyes bled.
Right.
Luck and timing provide the opportunity, but relentless preparation is required to actually capitalize on it.
Which brings us perfectly to the practical application. I want to issue a 7-day Outliers challenge to you, the listener.
Love it.
Step 1. Identify one skill worth mastering. Where do you actually want to put in your 10,000 hours? Step 2. Identify one environmental advantage you can create for yourself this week.
That's a great idea.
That could mean finding a mentor, physically changing your workspace to reduce friction, or practicing your practical intelligence by deliberately speaking up and advocating for yourself in just one meeting. Do not only ask, how hard am I working? Ask, what opportunities am I creating and what environment am I building around myself?
That is the perfect distillation. True outliers are not mysterious, self-made anomalies who drop from the sky. They are the beneficiaries of an ecosystem of legacy, timing, and relentless practice. Once we finally demystify success and stop attributing it to magic, it becomes something we can actually analyze and engineer.
So what does this all mean? Let me leave you with this final thought to mull over. Think back to those Canadian hockey players or the Czech national athletic teams, where literally half the talent of an entire nation is squandered simply because those kids were born in the wrong months of the year. What if society stopped leaving success to a patchwork of lucky breaks? If we just built a second hockey league for kids born in the fall, we'd double our stars overnight.
We really would.
Look around your own workplace, your own classroom, or your community. Where are you throwing away half the talent just because of the arbitrary rules you've set up? Remember that towering oak tree? It didn't get there alone. It's Hans's time we start paying attention to the soil.